happening now, I think, in industry with respect to sustainability a lot. All of a sudden, you need people who just have a global perspective on many, many different topics without getting too much in detail, because for getting too in detail, you have all the experts established already. So it needs more like...
Hello, and welcome to another evening with Plastic Climate Future and Circularise, another episode from our series that we're doing together with MESPA on sustainable materials. And hello, MESPA, nice to see you again.
Hi, Matt. Glad to be here again. Looking forward to today's episode.
Yeah, you can definitely, because we have another super interesting guest tonight with us, and it's Verena from the company UVEX, and we're super happy to have you here. Hello,
Hi, Matt.
Verena.
Hi, Mespa. Thanks for having me. I'm very much looking forward to our podcast tonight.
Great. So, Verena, maybe you've heard already some of our podcasts, but you of course, you should say yes now, right? But if not, it doesn't matter. But we always start, because I think the most inspiring thing about innovation is always the personal journey of the people, of these innovators behind those innovations. And first maybe tell us, what is your function and what are you doing at UVEX? And then I would be happy to get to know some personal story.
Right. So let's start with the official one, with the official part. Yes. So my role at UVEX Safety, actually. So UVEX has, I think we might come to that later, but UVEX is practically split into UVEX Sports, which most of you might know, the consumer brand, and the B2B brand, UVEX Safety, which offers PPE products, which means personal protective equipment, from head to toe practically. And my role is I'm head of strategic sustainability development. And that is, again, in the Department of Strategic Innovation Solutions. So I'm practically kind of trying to orchestrate, trying to organize different aspects of sustainability when it comes to supporting our product teams, supporting our marketing, and also supporting our sales. We get a lot of questions recently from our customers around sustainability and around circularity, of course. Yeah.
Cool. And what is your background then? Are you then a material person? Are you a strategy person, or both? Or
maybe I don't really know what I am. So I just kind of covered a little bit of here and there, and I don't have this classic CV assumingly. So I've studied English and economics, so rather broad range and background, so no techie background. And then I worked in the textile industry for more than 10 years. Textile industry, actually selling natural fibers, selling merino yarns for a global active company. And within that role, I was in touch with lots of sports and outdoor brands, because that was the segment I was specializing in, together with those brands in Australia, New Zealand, but also Europe. I was building up actually programs. I was building up supply chains, supporting them, consulting them. And in the course of that, I actually came to the aspects of sustainability more and more, because first of all, it's been a natural material. So it was quite natural again to tell the sustainable story around it. That was one thing. But on the other hand, also the aspect of transparent supply chains across the whole textile manufacturing process. Textile manufacturing process are rather complex, and I have a lot of steps involved. And this is like the kind of, this is how I came to sustainability, and then further developing towards the plastics industry, towards more plastic material within my role at UVEX. Yes.
And because I know UVEX mainly from sports, because I'm a sports guy, but you just mentioned that this is just one division. So the part where you are active in, like people's protection. I know UVEX actually from the protective shoes
Oh,
that we
good.
had to wear in some of the
Yes.
companies, of course.
Very,
That no one likes to wear, but especially those who have to work in the lab,
yeah.
like at universities. But that's kind of like the bigger business, right?
Yeah,
Of
definitely. So
UVEX.
we're super happy for our sports colleagues because they support us a lot with the brand awareness. So the brand is pretty well known.
Yeah.
And they do around the sports part is around 25% of our business, and the safety, the PPE part is around 75%. So that's really the largest part, and it's also a global business. So we're covering practically like any type of like different markets around the world. And yes, my colleagues from the footwear department try very, very hard, and I think they've done an amazing job to make the shoes, meanwhile, not only look good, but also being super comfortable. So maybe you should try some new.
Yeah.
Then I will have
But
to work
the time you
again.
were still wearing those, Matt, was a long, long time ago. I think the innovations are way ahead
Yeah.
now. They're very comfortable now.
Yeah. Thanks. This was a nice way to say that I look old.
Well, if you want to see how Matt looks like, you should watch the podcast and not listen to it on YouTube. No, but Farina,
Well,
that's quite interesting because I'm very interested from your perspective in obviously the personal journey. How do you get to this point? How do you like, be do the job that you're doing right now? How did your career kind of end to this? Did you already foresee this early on? Was it planned, or did you kind of stumble upon it? I know a lot of people in sustainability space, they kind of stumble upon it. It kind of happens, or they have this gut feeling, but they don't really know how to plan for it because 20, 30 years ago, we had no idea where we are right now with the world. So yeah, how did you get here?
Yeah, so I fully agree because I always tend to tell like students, today's students, that when I graduated from university in 2010, the role that I have now, the job that I'm doing now, didn't even exist. So nobody could ever think like, what would you do? And I need to say that I mentioned it in the intro. I was always like kind of more global person. I'm interested in kind of a lot of different things, and this was not a classic career path back then. So you just had to, or it was expected to commit to a certain subject and then follow this path. And this is what's happening now, I think, in the industry with respect to sustainability a lot. All of a sudden, you need people who just have a global perspective on many, many different topics without getting too much in detail, because for getting in detail, you have all the experts established already. So it needs more like a kind of coordination, project management person. And yeah, I always tend to use this term orchestrating, because it really means like we have all the expert people and the specialists available, and now it's just about a combined or joint transformation of driving this aspect. And for your question about if I planned this, nope, not at all. I had no clue about this topic coming up, and it's not that I was like 10 years ago I said I need to follow a classic sustainability path. I was more into sales and marketing, always this kind of things with communication and maybe also explaining, yeah, working with people, of course, and getting things moving. And I think that's these skills are quite useful now also in this role, to really look at the sustainability transformation from a project management point of view, more or less.
Was there something in your career that triggered your move towards sustainability? Do you remember when it happened and why it
Yeah,
happened?
it was actually quite a it was a personal experience, because on the one hand I was working with all these fantastic outdoor brands who took a very, very serious job in making really socially and ecologically high standards for their products, so that if you buy this brand, I mean, of course, there's always things to improve and so on. But if you buy this brand, or many brands actually, then you can have a real good feeling, because you know they've done a perfect job. So this was what I was experienced. So I was actually experienced a pro side from the inside perspective in the industry. And on the other hand, I was talking with friends, some like, I don't know, Saturday night and being out for some glasses of wine. And they were like, oh yes, I would be willing to pay extra. I would be willing to pay a premium for like sustainable clothing or for sustainable sports gear, but I can't trust on that. I don't know what the certificates tell me. I don't know what the labels tell me. It's so hard to judge. And this was for me like a key point or a key turning point probably in my career, when I also had the opportunity in my previous company, in textile company, to start a project where we've created a platform that had the mission to say, okay, let's make sustainability experienceable. And we just put different suppliers on the platform. It was a digital platform that then generated a QR code, could be used on the clothes. And this QR code was quite easy to access. So that was important for us to make it as easy as possible for customers, for consumers, to access the story behind the garment, to see like the different steps included, and at one glance see the social standards and the ecological standards. And this was really when I came to sustainability. The project was later then turned into a startup called Know Your Stuff. Excuse me. And this was really the key point for me when I also then came across this opportunity at UVEX Safety, which was at first titled as Business Development Sustainability, where I really saw the mission to combine the sometimes dry factual aspects of sustainability with the business opportunity, with the business perspective, and the communicative part.
Yeah, what a cool story. And now, having an expert in transparency also with us, Mespa. I think this resonates well, also with what's happening, I think, in the industry. I mean, also the necessity for this trust, not only because it makes you feel good, but I think because if you want to drive these collaborations where you can close the loop between different parts of the value chain, it's also about transmitting the right type of information so that there new collaborations will exist, right? Or will come into being and yeah, contribute to closing the loop. What I'm interested in now is, because as you said, like, you're coming actually from this completely different background, and you did some material focused business development in the textile company with the merino wool. And how much material topics do you deal with today on a kind of daily basis? Is it still more like, orchestrating, as you just said, or is it also already, you had to learn a lot about plastics or new materials, and then also the impact of materials on the entire value
Yeah.
chain of
So
products?
naturally, I mean, still, I'm not a plastics expert, but of course, when you just deal with those products on a daily basis, and also I'm working on concepts how we can establish circularity, or like trying recycling opportunities and so on. So this is like kind of part of my job. All the same, I'm like, as I mentioned, I'm part of the strategic innovation solution team, and we do have like chemists in our team. We do have like material managers in our team. There is a lot of in-depth expertise. But what I've maybe to name a concrete project is what I've been excuse me, what I've been doing together with a colleague of mine is that projects are called bio-based materials, where we are now exploring different options of using bio-based ingredients for turning them into plastics, and or also using bio-based materials, namely natural materials, because at UVEX we don't just process fibers. We don't just process plastics, but we also process textiles. Actually, we also have some SBUs, strategic business units, what we call them. One is textiles per se, like the workwear itself, but also gloves and footwear where textiles are processed. So yes, I'm having an overview of the different plastics and the different fibers and the different options, and then again, there's the expert teams that are then available and supporting here, of course.
Yeah, that's when you were saying before that you have this this personal journey where some of your your friends maybe or colleagues and family were talking about the fact that they wanted to pay for sustainability, but they couldn't really trust or
Yeah.
understand really what was happening around all these complex or dry terminology. Do you think you have solved that, Raul? Do you think there are solutions that solve that particular problem? And if so, could you name a few? Because to me, that's very fascinating, and I'm not sure. I mean, in my mind, it's not solved. Like, how do you get that complex message to the
Yes.
consumer in a way that they understand?
I fully agree. It's not yet solved. And I sometimes find it's getting even harder because the markets are getting more complex. And it started with food, and then you had some one or two labels that gave quite good guidance, and it became more and more complex. The same for all the apparel sector, the same for all the plastic sectors, packaging, traveling, you name it. And I think there are two big challenges. The one, first of all, is not to overload people because it's impossible, and I'm including myself, and I'm in a consumer position. I can't investigate in depth for every type of product that I'm sourcing. So I need to kind of have some reliance, say, okay, I know my certificates, that's good, that's bad. And sometimes it's also ease of mind because I need to do some grocery shopping and I need to finish because I'm running out of time, whatever. So that's a huge challenge, and we need to be I think all of us need to be kind of careful, yes, not to be too moral or not to be too prescriptive for consumers and making them like feeling bad whenever they do this or that. So that's the one point. And then the second point is that it takes a lot of education, and it needs, like, the whole communication of sustainability needs to be based more, according to my opinion, on facts and figures. Like, there's so much gut feeling, and there's so much like, hey, I've used a recycled bag, then I can take the long haul flight, whatever. That's paying off and things like that. And I think it's our responsibility as industries to provide, like, for example, a CO2 product footprint. Like, we need to establish currencies for sustainability that consumers and customers can compare it, can rate it, and can then judge it.
That's an interesting one, and I will challenge you on this one because telling someone how much CO2 equivalence is a product emitting or responsible for in production. Do you think that's enough, or do you think it has to be also connected not only to not only to the description of a product, but also to some education in terms of how to use it, how to recycle it? Because, like, what I'm trying to say is, if you look at the different food packaging that we get in the kitchen, and I think there is still so much confusion of which part of the packaging has to be separated and which part of the packaging has to be go to, which bin. Is it now real paper? Is it as a paper towel goes to the paper bin or not? I mean, of course, people who are in the field, they are much more aware of this. But I think even if it says like, yeah, it's recycled, there is still such a big educational gap in terms in the use phase on how to close these loops. Do you think this is also part of the challenge of driving the
I
sustainability?
guess you know the answer. It's yes, absolutely, and maybe also to share some insights here at UVEX, the CO2 product footprint. We have been establishing that for our products, um, exactly to get away from this. Yeah, this is like a green product because it has some recycled content. please take it.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
want to
Okay.
make it, yeah, provable. We want to make it measurable and comparable. However, this is just a start. And that's why we are now strategically looking into the aspect of circularity. Also, from a strategic perspective, we have identified four so-called focus fields. One of them is innovation driver circularity. And here we clearly try to address the circular aspects from a very holistic point of view. Because what I experienced is that sometimes you talk about circularity and people go like, oh yeah, recycling, great, tech, done. And I think that won't do the deal because it takes so much more, and Matthew already addressed it. We need to include the consumer because circularity absolutely does not end at the point of sale or at the point of handing over the physical product to the consumer, but we need to much more integrate the customer journey, the use phase, into the complete perspective of the full product. So the product, so far, also in classic economic and classic business administration, you source some material, you manufacture the product, and then you sold it, and then you're done. There is no perspective in classic economic theory that you would continue to guide your product's usage phase. And this is the huge turning point that we need to address. And this is also one of the biggest challenges when it comes to transformation. And I believe that it's not just something that we need to do because it's a huge benefit for the environment, no doubt. I also believe that it's a great business opportunity because you strengthen your customer relationship. You might be rewarded as a company to produce long lasting products. You might offer repair services. You might have refurbishment option, reusing whatever, and eventually you might recycle the inert material. But clearly we need to take the turning point and include the customer, the use phase into our perspective of product selling.
No, absolutely. It's not one or the other, right? They're very important. Matt, did I sense some doubt when you were talking about the CO2 emission? Like, do you think that that value might potentially not be important or understood, or might create confusion at consumers? Or did I understand wrong?
Oh no, I think it's just like one part of the story because you cannot like I think it's not enough or it's you cannot expect from every stakeholder in the value chain, and this then includes the consumer, to understand what is CO2
Yeah.
emissions,
So,
because it has to be. We've seen it in the electronics industry that there was not, even if you have like the electronic the power consumption value in kilowatts per hour. That's not something that you can expect from the consumer to understand. So you have this like ABCDE energy rating or something like this. And here I think this is where it starts, and this is where it's gonna take also, will require responsibility from the manufacturers, but also collaboration on, with policymakers probably, and regulatory bodies or standardization bodies to find a system that works. Because I don't know if you're aware that the product environmental footprint, which was being discussed at the EU level as a measure to for proving green claims, is being now, controversially discussed whether this is something that will really lead to the expected results. So that's why I was curious, like, what are the next steps, and I think this is one of the big challenges as well when driving the sustainability and circularity implementation, is to bring in also probably into the development the consumers, and the voice, and the knowledge from the consumers, in order to really also find the right ways to communicate, especially
yeah.
in
I mean,
consumer
I
goods,
have a
of
slightly
course.
different view on that. I think I do agree today. If you would put a carbon CO2 like equivalent number on any given product, I can bet like
Mm.
99% of all consumers will not be able to say if that's high or low, or like there's nothing that they can do with it. But I think the way I compare it, and if Verena touched upon it, like labeling started with food. I don't know what type of labeling is particularly meant, Verena, but when I think of food labeling in nutrition, like nutrition wise, like calories, for example, the reason why most consumers know if 100 calories is a lot or not that much is not because we were all born with this knowledge. It's because it's standardized and we have been working with
Yeah.
this for decades
Yeah.
now, right? So we know 100 calories is not that much. But if you would ask a similar consumer just as ourselves 50 years ago, what is 100 calories? Nobody
Yeah.
will say, like, what is a calorie? I have no fucking idea what you're talking about, right? So this is the same thing. So 100 carbon equivalent, CO2 equivalent doesn't mean anything today. But because we can standardize it, we can start comparing and educating consumers, right? I think it's yeah, we can't expect
Mhm.
consumers to know because we haven't been talking the same
Yeah.
language towards them. Everybody's
Yeah.
saying this something different right now. Of course, they're confused.
Yeah. And
Touching upon the collaboration, because we just shortly mentioned it. I mean, you have very complex products. Obviously, you are a global market. You have challenges on maybe also different cultural backgrounds, which affects the consumer education and consumer behavior, but also supply chains. Um, and now you say you want to close the loop and you want to become circular. So we said already at the beginning when off the mic we said that the collaboration part is crucial for this, of course. What are your like main stakeholder groups that you collaborate with now, and where do you think you will have to strengthen and build up more collaborations in order to
yeah.
drive the
So
sustainability?
our collaboration, I mean, goes from we're starting from collaboration with universities, for example, where we really have on a scientific basis students investigating for us what opportunities there are, working out holistic business model systems. So that's the one aspect. The second one, of course, is certainly recycling companies, and also then moving on towards logistic companies. And for us, as you said, Matt, we have lots of complex products. So each SBU has a lot of different products with sometimes even different materials within each SBU. And then we have high variation, high differentiation of the materials used across the SBUs. So there is no one size fits all solution. So we don't have, two recyclers that work for all of our products. We're done, but we need to build up that network step by step. And this is the collaboration, the type of collaboration that we're looking into. Also startups, on the one hand, maybe companies who offer us some recycled material possibly that might be used again, but also then in the aspect of digital services. How can we make use of digital solutions? How can we use them to follow our products, to monitor the usage phase, maybe get them back again, not even selling them, and I don't know, renting them out. So we're now really in this brainstorming phase, and we're trying to build up our kind of network ecosystem. And we're also looking into solutions how we can actually make circularity measurable, just as we do with the CO2 product footprint. It's always like it's not the perfect value, but we do the same for circularity. So we're looking into trying to find kind of KPIs for circularity that we can also support our product managers with, and let them know what materials can be used for circular product design, and also maybe what startups have what new solutions. So that's, I can't now give an example of a perfect collaboration for circularity. It's rather really the scouting and building up of different ecosystems for the specific purposes of our different product requirements.
I think, yeah, ecosystem, you name it. I think it's about creating also these ecosystems now, not only within the own organization, but also I think within all the
Yeah.
stakeholders in the value chain. And for this, obviously, we need some standards. We need, some metrics. We need to be able to communicate. We need MESPA with Circularise to also trust the information that is being
Yes.
transported. And yeah, I think that's something
Yeah.
that's
And
changing.
maybe one small add up to this is sometimes we might even
Mhm.
be our own stakeholders, our own ecosystem, because we might have some materials which are waste for one SBU that can be used for another one. So, because we have this complexity or this high variety of materials, which is sometimes a big challenge, it's also opportunity because we have our own supplies in some cases.
Yeah, in a circular economy, there's no
Yeah,
waste, right? So
exactly.
your waste is someone
Yeah.
else's input, right?
Exactly. Change the perspective, and all of a sudden, waste is material, and material is value.
Yep. Well, so, with your experience in textiles, did you back then, or maybe even now, see any kind of good traceability efforts where you think that's also now from a brand owner perspective is something you can work with, like standards or regulation or some sort of a framework that you're working with that you think uh, is good for like making the translation and talking about it, because it's all about communicating that to the consumer and making sure the value is captured at the end. Do you have any experience with that type of like transparency or chain of custody or that type of standards that you work with and that you like in particular?
So the very well established standards, certainly, if I may name them here, are GOTS and EV Best, because they have been doing this when it was not yet in fashion at all. It was like it's. I know some people who are in the board, and they are really driving a real sustainable, transparent, social textile world. And these standards have high demands. They take care of the chain of custody. So I think that's a absolute critical aspect when you look into standards for textiles, that you don't just evaluate the material, but that they always go through the whole textile chain. You mentioned it, Mispa, the chain of custody aspect, that really every partner is certified in the industry. EV Best asks for 100% KBT or KBA wool or cotton. That means that it's only very high standards for organic cotton or for kontrolliert biologische Tierhaltung. It's a German abbreviation when it comes to wool or other animal fibers. And Godstan, which is the more commonly known, probably has asked for 70% of KBA or KBT fibers, with some more natural fibers to be added. So these are the two standards which are really, really good. And what's also going on in the industry, but this is not yet like a real standard, but it is much more like some startups that are doing similar things that we have been doing with Know Your Stuff, namely to make the textile supply chain transparent. I actually don't really work this term supply chain because it always sounds very strict and very linear. I'd rather go for supply network, supply web. But that's just a side remark. And yeah, so lots of things are happening on a digital startup platform side that will definitely bring. Yeah, we always use the metaphor of unpacked black box of textile industry.
Got it. And do you think these digital innovations and startups will replace the likes of GO2S or complement
I
those?
assume that they're going to complement it because the standards are so well established. Yeah, Blue Sign, for example, also. Yeah.
And we talked now a bit already, or actually almost in every question we had we reverted to the materials, right? So now from your perspective, and also working maybe with, not only polymers, but also in the field of innovation, looking also at alternatives to polymers, but also, the natural fibers and mixed fibers that you mentioned before. What kind of sustainable material innovations have you seen recently that uh, are very much contributing to driving the circularity? Or maybe even like not doesn't have to be something super new, but maybe it's just simply like, recycled materials versus bio-based materials. Like, what is your take on this?
So, firstly, I believe that's maybe something that we should reconsider. That's not so much in fashion and not immediately comes to mind when you think of sustainable plastics, is to use or to whatever to use um, high quality plastics that is designed for long lasting purposes. That's something we've been doing at UVEX for a very long time, but this is something that's a bit underestimated when it comes to circularity. So it doesn't have to be the
Yeah.
absolute mega new innovation, but it is absolutely critical to use the products as long as you can, because whatever you avoid to produce newly is the best thing you can do in terms of sustainability. So that's the one thing. Then we have had some very interesting information about chemical recycling processing. So not just startups, but also larger corporates seem to make really good steps here, because this is also, to be frank here, the biggest challenge that we face when it comes to mechanical recycling. It sometimes doesn't meet our technical values, and then we just can't guarantee the safety, the absolute purpose of our products, and therefore it's that's just not negotiable. So we need to have the certain standards. Chemical recycling is very promising. And what I had a meeting about last week was actually a startup company from Sweden, and they've made something very, very nice. They are using wood and combine it with virgin plastics, with compounds, about, I don't know, 30 to 40% of wood, and then they add it on with virgin plastics, and then they create a complete new plastic compound out of it with a 30 to 40% natural basis. And I think these stories are quite nice, because it's not the absolute turnaround solution, but it's the little steps. And if we enrich our fossil-based materials by 30% natural materials, then this may be very, very helpful, because it achieves the quality values that we need for long-lasting products and contributes to bringing down our CO2 product footprint, but also, of course, when you think of the biological cycle, wood can be composted again and so on, and therefore create circular products.
So speaking of like making these small steps as well as bio-based plastics, what do you think of mass balancing? Is that something that is helpful for you, or is that something that is confusing to the consumer? There's some controversy around that as well. Any takes from your side?
He just asked this question because he knows that it's also
I
confusing for
see.
me.
Okay. I'm a pro mass balance person. I need to.
Finally, someone will explain it to me.
And I think, God, now I'm under pressure to explain that. And
Well, we had real experts. So far, no one could explain it to me. Like it might be either that it's just me being really stupid, or it's maybe such a complicated thing. And I talked with John, and he said, mass balancing is easy, but
yeah,
it's
exactly.
complex.
The principle is quite easy. I mean, you use some things, then you mix it with others, and you don't, physically you can't prove anymore what particles are the
Yeah.
green particles. We call them like because we had this discussion internally, and UVEX is a company that doesn't just take, okay, that's a nice brochure, let's take it. On the contrary, so everybody, which is a good thing, but sometimes it's challenging. People really dig deep and ask questions into depth until they really deeply understand it. And yes, I absolutely agree with mass balancing. Going hand in hand with that, we explain it to our customers. So we explain the mass balancing approach, and I can send that paragraph to you later on, Matt. Maybe it's helpful. And it is for me, it's a bridge technology. Why not? It does reduce CO2. It does boost bio-based materials, and it still helps us to achieve our quality standards that we need. So maybe we should not always think in perfect solutions, or we don't do it. It's also sometimes a kind of German thing. And if I say that, and think of those blending solutions, those bridge technologies, that little steps that take us on our way.
Yeah, we always, because we had already a couple of, or actually many innovators from the bioplastics sector. And there's always this discussion like, bioplastics, they just make 1% of the total plastic demand and they make it since 20 years. So why don't you just stop it? And I think here it comes to the same what you just said, that I think we're now trying to replace technologies that have been established and made, if in terms of efficiency, cost, have been made perfect over the last 100 years. And now we're trying to find the silver bullet within just like, in the next 5 years, we're going to replace these technologies at the same cost. We're going to have the supply chains and we're going to have enough materials to find a much more sustainable solution. And I think, we're here competing with technologies that are 100 years optimized, right? So I definitely agree that this is something that, as also John always says, don't make perfect the evil of good, right? The enemy of good.
Yeah, no, fully agree. And that's why I always bring up this aspect of communication, because it's so critical to take the consumer and really share the insights, to be transparent about what you do, and to be brave enough also to commit and tell the truth and say, no, we are not 100% sustainable and we are not 100% circular. But we're on our very first steps. But we take you and we try to be transparent, and we are very ambitious and very eager to to achieve those goals. And it's better than not doing anything. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yet I still have to find somebody who can explain mass balancing to a 5-year-old in one sentence. That I think that specifically is one of the biggest challenges of becoming sustainable. If we can find the solution to that problem, how do you explain it in a convincing, easy way without creating confusion? Because the moment people understand it for the first time, like, you can get two reactions. Like, either they're like, okay, I'm confused, or they're like, so you've been cheating me.
yeah,
You've been lying to me.
yeah.
And this is what you want to prevent,
Yeah.
right?
I'm just thinking of some examples, some comparison with sand, probably. Like, if you blend two type of sand from two different beaches and you mix it and you give it away, and you cannot guarantee that there's certain share of the first beach in it. Would that make sense? No, I confused
Yeah,
you even more. I can take it out.
Yeah, let's say it's
Yeah.
we will still, this will be, I think this will, the first, this will be a good advertisement actually. So anyone who is listening and who is able to explain mass balancing within, let's say, maximum 2 sentences or maybe 3, but for a level of a 5-year-old, they have to write to us, and there will be, we make a
yeah.
T-shirt or
The
something.
winner will be invited to the podcast, and we can have an episode
Oh
with
yeah,
them where they could
On
actually.
mass balance all night long.
yeah, we could do that. We could do
Okay.
that. Yeah, I'm just looking at the time. So we've covered already a lot of topics, and I think, Verena, it's so much fun with you, and probably we should plan already another episode after we all know what mass balancing means, and then we're gonna go dive deeper into more sophisticated topics even. But we have always one last question that we always ask our guests, and this is one of the most important questions. I hope you like music, because we have a Plastic Climate Future playlist, and we're asking our guests always to provide one song that connects either to the podcast or to the person themselves, or which is
Mhm.
simply a good song. Do you have something for us?
Now, with your questions about mass balance, I was actually thinking about Under Pressure from Queen. But let's take something classic German. And
Well, that's fine. Under pressure from Queen is
a
good.
connection, I was thinking of a song that's kind of connected to plastics in a good way. It's not so easy, like, because there are not too many songs about plastics. So I would go for 99 Red Balloons from Nina or 99.
Ah, yeah. Okay, that's a good one. I don't know how I made it before, but there was like,
Yeah,
have you seen the balloons
exactly.
coming up there? I think this was some kind of an effect from the
Ah,
software. Ah,
Yeah, it's
works.
you can turn it on the top of your screen. There's a little icon, little camera
Yeah.
icon, a green icon. You can turn it on there. It's called reaction, so
Ah,
you can
all
do all
right,
kinds of fun
all
stuff like this.
right, all right. But I didn't turn it on actually, so
No,
that's why I
it
don't
also
know what's
has
going
like if
on.
you do this, for example, like
Ah,
there's
yeah,
all kinds
yeah.
of
it's
new stuff in Mac
recognized
OS.
your emotions.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I think it's super interesting, and especially to have like these insights that how you connect, your personal passion for sustainability, and then really do put it into real projects with impact. And I think what's super interesting is also that the fact that UVEX is so much driven by understanding and creating this impact. Yeah, and as I mentioned, like we would be happy to have you on another episode, maybe in a couple of months, and see how this developed further and what kind of innovations